Hey Cake Chums, and welcome back to the Mr. Baker's Cakes Kitchen and episode 1 of my new mini-series, Mr. Baker's Cakes, Cake Basics. Now of course we've done a couple of baking videos now and we've done some kind of like miscellaneous content, but ultimately my thing is cake decorating. And I feel like before we can get into some of the more complicated stuff that I like to do, like carving cakes and making kind of cake sculptures, we really need to nail those basics first. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to be uploading videos that will take you through the basic process of baking a cake, torting, filling and crumb coating a cake, and then going on to cover it in buttercream or sugar paste or whatever it is you decide you want to do. Kind of my thinking is that way, when we get into the more complicated stuff later on, we can always come back, or you can always come back and rewatch these videos if there's any steps that you've missed. And of course, if you found your way here because you're new to cakes entirely, hopefully these videos will be a great kind of foundation for you to start on your cake journey. That sounds really pretentious. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Rob, aka Mr. Baker's Cakes, and I am a baker, cake decorator, cake blogger, cake YouTuber. I kind of do a lot of stuff and it's all to do with cake. Here on YouTube I upload a new video every Friday, so if you haven't already you can hit that subscribe button down there on the right, I never know which side it is, and if you ring the bell icon that will make sure you get a notification every time I upload a new video. But yeah, let's get to the video. Of course, there are lots of different recipes to make cakes. There are recipes that use the all-in-one method, which basically means you just throw everything in a bowl and zhuzh it up. There are the creaming method, which we will be using today, and that's where you start with your butter, and then you add your sugar, and then you add your other ingredients. And then there are other even more complicated methods, such as the melting method, and goodness knows what else besides. But as I say, we're going to start with the creaming method, and hopefully that will give us a nice kind of reasonably dense but still light cake that is perfect for stacking, for carving, kind of it's a good all-round cake. Now the basic recipe for this cake is, I guess, kind of adapted from the recipe that is all over the internet that I think was originated by Maisie Fantasi. I think that's the name. So if you Google that, you'll get about 400,000 results from Pinterest. But that recipe very much gives you the quantities of all of the ingredients for the different size cake tins you might want to use. So the element of that recipe that I have taken is the number of eggs suggested that you use. But kind of from there I go a bit rogue, because what I will do is I'll weigh the eggs still in the shells, and then that will give me the kind of the quantity of all of the other ingredients that I need to use. But rather than explain it, it's probably a lot easier if I just show you. So let's do some baking. Okay, so I've gone for a bit of a different camera angle, which hopefully means that you'll be able to see what's going on, although when I stand up you can't see my head at all. You don't need to, this is what you need to see. And it also shows you that we've gone super casual today. Yes, I am wearing my lounge pants and slippers, but it's Friday. So I'm going to pop an apron on because I have a tendency when I'm baking to be fairly ridiculously messy. If you have watched any of my previous videos, I might link one up somewhere so you can watch it. You'll see that I do like to spread out and to end up wearing quite a lot of the ingredients. But anyway, focus Rob. So today in this first video we are very much covering how to make the cake, and as I say, this is really bad posture, and as I say we're going to start by weighing the eggs, and we're going to weigh the eggs in the shells. I don't really know why, that's just the way we do it. Baking is science, baking is like chemistry, so it's all about getting the perfect balance of eggs, butter, flour, sugar. And I find that by weighing the eggs in their shells, it gives me the perfect kind of base quantity for all of the other ingredients. As I say, I don't know why, I didn't make the rules, I just follow them. That's me. Rule follower. So, scales, bowl, zero the scales, and we are going to be doing an 8-egg mix today. Sometimes I'll use medium eggs, sometimes I will use large eggs. It doesn't really matter because again, all of the other quantities are going to be based on the weight of the eggs. So yeah, we'll put in 2, 4, 6, 8 eggs. And those 8 eggs come to 475 grams. So that 475 grams is my base measurement now for all of my other ingredients. And we don't actually need the eggs yet, so we'll put them to the side. So we're going to start by taking the bowl of the stand mixer, which is going to go on there. And into this bowl, we need to start with 475 grams of butter, which is just shy of 2 blocks. Now there will be some people watching this, I'm sure, who are thinking, well, I tend to bake with margarine. Why aren't you using margarine? And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I do. However, I have found just recently that using like a baking spread, my cakes have been coming out quite greasy, and I don't know why, so I have gone back to butter for the time being. You can see I'm just really roughly chopping it up into big old blocks. Now of course, if you don't have a stand mixer like one of these, you can also do this using a hand whisk. I'd probably start with slightly smaller blocks of butter in here just because you don't want to burn out the motor on your mixer by making it work harder than it needs to. Now this butter has been sat out to come to room temperature. That is 475 grams. So I'll put this tiny piece away to have on a crumpet later. Now, I'm going to be using a beater paddle to start off by beating my butter to get it nice and smooth and pale in colour. I do have a flexi beater as well, but that is downstairs and I can't be bothered to go and get it. So I'm just using the normal K beater, and yeah, you can also use a whisk attachment if you prefer. I just tend to always use the beater. So that goes in there, and then I'm just going to leave this to run on kind of a medium speed until the butter is kind of smooth and pale in colour. Okay, when that has kind of done its thing and the butter is looking kind of creamy and pale, I'm going to scrape the mixture just down the side of the bowl. If I was using my flexi beater, I wouldn't need to do this, but I'm not, so I do. There we go, scrape that off. Next up is sugar, and again we're going to use 475 grams, just like we did the butter. So scales, bowl, sugar. And you'll see I'm using everything fresh out of a packet. I got these from the supermarket yesterday. So, like I said in previous videos, no kind of specialist ingredients. It's all just bog standard stuff that you can get hold of. And just weighing out 475 grams. So that gets added to the bowl with the butter. And then we're going to cream them together, which is how this method got its name. Of course, I said you could, if you don't have a stand mixer, you could do this using a electric hand whisk, like that one. But you might not even have one of those, in which case you can also do it using a bowl and a spoon. That's how people did it for many, many years. We've just all got super lazy these days. It just means that this bit is a little bit harder. Kind of regretting not going and getting the flexi beater now, but never mind. Let that run for a bit longer. Okay, and then once you are happy with how that is combined, it is time to move on to the next ingredient, which is the eggs. And I like to add my flavouring, sorry, I'll come down a bit, which is the eggs. And I like to add my flavouring to the eggs as well. There are lots of different ways you can do this. You might decide to use a paste or an extract like these ones. And if I'm using these, I will kind of beat them into the eggs before I add that into the cake mix. Or of course, you can go down the route of like fresh lemon zest, orange zest, things like that. And as you've seen in my previous videos, I'm also a big fan of using the flavoured icing sugars from Sugar and Crumbs to flavour my cake mixes. The way I would do that is I would kind of remove some of the sugar that I've obviously not remove it from here because too late, but I would replace some of that sugar with the Sugar and Crumbs flavoured icing sugar. So if I want quite a subtle flavour, I'll kind of do about half of the flavoured sugar, half regular. And if I want a really powerful flavour, I'll actually just put only the Sugar and Crumbs icing sugar in there. Yes, you can absolutely use icing sugar in a cake mix instead of caster sugar. It's all sugar, it's just milled finer. So this is super fine, caster is quite fine, granulated is less fine again. So yeah, switch them around, play with them, absolutely fine. Today I'm going to use fresh lemons. So I'll put these out of the way. Over here. And the way I'm going to add this flavour to the cake mix is by using lemon zest. I tend not to put lemon juice in my cake mixes, I know some people do. I find it inhibits the rise just a little bit. I don't know if there's some sort of reaction between like the acid and kind of the base of the raising agent or something. I tend to put zest in cake and then I'll save lemon juice for my buttercream. I tend to do 1 lemon for every 4 eggs, so I'm going to do 2 lemons in this mix. And then I will stir the zest into the egg before I add it into the cake mix. Let's do that. Maybe play some music. Speed it up. Whisking the eggs just to break up the yolks and make sure it's kind of more of an even consistency. And then straight into that I am going to add the lemon zest from the 2 lemons. I've always done it like this where I add my flavour into my eggs. I think it just gives me kind of better dispersal, like kind of more of an even blend, combination. Who knows? So mix that into there. And then I'm also going to weigh out my flour before I start putting eggs into this mixture. The reason for that is if the mixture starts to curdle while I'm adding the eggs, I can then add in a tablespoon of my flour to prevent that happening. And of course, if I don't have my flour ready, panic. Now I'm using self-raising flour, mainly because I always do. It just means you don't have to worry about adding your own raising agent like baking powder or bicarbonate of soda, and it just makes this super easy. So we've got literally butter, sugar, eggs, flour, boom, done. So again, 475 grams. And then it's time to start combining. Can you see? Mess already, mess. There. So I am going to put this on to run. And I'm just going to add in some of the eggs. That's quite a lot of the eggs. And so I can see that my mixture is starting to curdle already because I'm filming, so naturally why wouldn't it? So I can just add in just kind of like a large spoon or 2 of my flour. and that will just bind that mixture back together again. And then we just carry on. Eggs, bit of flour, until it's all in. Once you've got the flour in there, you really don't want to overmix it too much, because the more you mix it, once the flour's in, the more you will activate the gluten in the flour, and that gives you quite a doughy, almost bready cake. We don't want that. We want kind of a reasonably light soft sponge. Not too light that it's crumbly and awful for carving and layering, but also we don't want bread. I've just given the bowl a quick scrape down. I'm going to give it one more quick whiz on a low speed just to combine all those stuff from the edges in again, and then that's it. Now once you've got to this stage, it is time to pop it in tins ready to go in the oven. So the 8-egg mix that we have done, we'll do 2 8-inch rounds. If you watched my best of 2019 video last week, you will have seen that my pan of choice is the PME seamless cake tins, and I've got the 3-inch deep ones, although they are also available in 4-inch as well. Now, one of mine is already being used, so I only have one. So for today, we're going to use one PME and one supermarket loose bottoms tin as well. Not ideal, normally I would use 2 the same, but I really was not as prepared for this video as I should have been. You can either prepare these by buttering them, flouring them, or using like goop that I know some people are keen on. I tend to use cake release spray, and I use this one from PME. And all you need to do with the cake release spray is give it a good shake, and then you just spray the bottom and around the sides. Like so. And then I'm going to line the base of the tin using greaseproof paper. And that's it. I don't line the sides at all. I find that generally this mixture will release quite easily. We basically just want to split this mixture half and half between the two pans. Another tip is don't leave your cake mix sat for too long while you prepare to shoot the next bit of your video, because you'll see it's already started to rise and therefore it quite looks a bit weird. The perils of YouTube baking. You can see there's no kind of exact science to this. I'm not weighing the mixture at all. I'm literally just scoop for you, scoop for you. You'll see it's quite a thick mix anyway. I mean, yes, it's even thicker because I have just left it sat on the side while I got the next things ready. You really want to have them ready in advance. But yeah, it is supposed to be quite a thick mixture because that's where we get that strength and density from that is going to help us when we come to do carving, if we were to carve these cakes. Why are you open? That's where we're at the moment. Move this out of the way. And then the last thing we're going to do is just grab a small palette knife and just kind of smooth the mix out to fill the whole tin. And then I like to give them a bit of a on the counter, just to encourage any air bubbles that might be inside to pop. And then these will go into the oven for 1 hour and 30 minutes on a really low heat. I tend to bake all my cakes at about 150 degrees C. I have no idea what that is in Fahrenheit, sorry. What is super important is once they go in the oven, we are not going to open the door. As your cake bakes, all the air that's been trapped inside will gradually start to expand and puff up, helped along by the raising agents in the self-raising flour. And what will happen if you open that door too early, all that air will just go whoomp again and your cake will drop. And there is no coming back from that. So, that's the biggest, most important rule when you are baking this cake, is do not open that oven door. I mean it. So I'm going to go and pop these in the oven for 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and have a tidy up. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so those have gone into the oven, and I thought I'd just, before I deal with this mess that you now can't see, I'm trying to think if there are any questions that might come up as a result of this video that I can kind of preempt. I would really suggest that you invest in an oven thermometer. When we moved into this house where we live now, we realised very quickly that our oven wasn't quite accurate. So we bought an oven thermometer, popped it in the oven, and we realised that our oven actually runs about 30 degrees hotter than it should, which is why I was basically burning everything for quite a while. Quite often I do see people in kind of the Facebook groups and things like that saying, oh, I don't know why my cake has come out so well done, it was at this temperature and so on. And I genuinely believe a lot of the time it's because their oven was either too hot or because their oven was too cold. So definitely worth investing in. You can get them on Amazon. They don't cost very much at all, and it just kind of gives you a bit more kind of reassurance that your oven is running to temperature. I'm also a big fan of baking kind of at a lower temperature for much longer. So if I bake it for about 90 minutes at 150 degrees, you'll see in a minute that my cakes come out pretty much flat, with a nice kind of even caramelization around the outside and across the top. And it means kind of you get more usable cake. I know a lot of people do tend to bake at a higher temperature for a shorter amount of time, but that tends to give you that kind of that dome on the top. Bake low and slow, and you'll also see I don't use like a baking core or a flour nail in the center or anything. Again, if you do it nice and low and slow, you won't need to. So yeah. How to tell if your cake is done. Now, of course you can use, I think I have one somewhere, these things. So this is a cake tester, and you kind of push it into your cake when you think it's finished and pull it out. And if there's any mixture left on the kind of the rod, you know that it's not finished. I tend not to use these because some of my recipes are quite wet. I have like a really nice gooey chocolate mud cake that I bake quite regularly. My carrot cake is quite a moist recipe as well. And so sometimes these can fool you. You can kind of go into a bit that is kind of pretty much there and think, yeah, it's baked, and actually there's pockets that aren't. And similarly, you might go into a bit that is quite moist and you think, oh gosh, it's not finished, but actually the rest of the cake is pretty much there. So I just don't trust these. I tend to rely on listening to my cakes. So when we get to the end of the bake time of 90 minutes, I'll open the oven, have a look, and I'll have a listen. And if I can still hear the mixture bubbling away inside, which is known as singing, then I know that the cake's not finished yet. And kind of with experience, you come to know how much longer your cake will need based on the amount of bubbling that you can hear. So at the end of this bake time of 1 hour and 30 minutes, sometimes it will need another kind of 5 to 8 minutes of baking just to get it over the finish line. But that's how I tell that my cakes are finished. When the cake drops, and we've covered that already because it is usually that you've opened the oven too soon to have a look at it and you've let all the air kind of out the top. If you are using plain flour and adding your own raising agent, if you don't add enough or too much, you can cause your cake to drop, which is why I tend to stick to self-raising flour, just because it's something I don't have to worry about. It's already done for me. Overbeating, we've kind of covered already as well. If you overbeat your cake mix once you've put the flour in, you can cause it to get too dense, almost bready in consistency. I don't know, I think those are kind of the common issues that people talk to me about. But if you are having any problems with your cakes and you think I might be able to help, then do feel free to head down to the comments below and ask. And it may well be that if I can't answer, I can direct you towards a book or another kind of source of information that can help. I'm not claiming to be an expert in any way, shape or form. I just know what worked for me and what has worked for me over the last a long time. Cake decorating, yes, about 5.5 years, but baking definitely has been something I've done for a very long time, and I like to think I'm pretty good at it. Recipe wise, so as you saw, the recipe we were using today was to bake 2 8-inch layers of cake, and that used 8 eggs. If I'm baking 6-inch layers, I will use a 4-egg mix. For 2 10-inch layers, I will use a 12-egg mix, and for 2 12-inch layers, I will use a 20-egg mix. I kind of think that's it. I'll be honest with you guys, it has been a bit of a week, so part of me is like, doesn't know whether it's coming or going. I've already shot this entire video yesterday, and it was so bad because I literally was half asleep and making tons of mistakes that I ended up just like stopping and deciding to start again today. So apologies if I'm not my usual self, and but yeah, anyway, I'm gonna get this mess cleaned up, and I will see you guys in about 1 hour and 20 minutes, hopefully with 2 beautifully baked cake tiers. Don't know what these are doing. In a bit. And then just like that, through the magic of editing, we have 2 baked cakes. Now, as I said earlier on, to check that the cakes are fully baked, I will literally just hold them up to my ear and check that they're not bubbling anymore, which these ones are not. And then I tend to leave them to cool in the tins for literally maybe 5 minutes, and then I'll turn them out and put them onto a cooling rack. Now, to do that, I will take a cake board, pop it on top of the tin, and literally just flip it over. And then, because we've lined the base of that tin, we can just lift up, and you will see there is our cake. Now, in this light, it does kind of look fairly caramelised, but it smells absolutely amazing. That kind of lemon flavour is coming through really, really well. And then I leave mine to cool upside down, which I can do because you can see how flat it is. Can you see that? Super, super flat. Very little in the way of doming. Put that one to the side. And we'll do exactly the same thing again. And can you see that with the other tin, I have actually got more doming going on there. So that's one of the reasons why I always speak about how much I love using the PME seamless tins, just because I do think it gives me better results. Anyway, and then we slide that onto the cooling rack, and I'll leave those to cool in their entirety before wrapping them up in cling film until I'm ready to use them. So there you go, guys. That is the recipe that I use to create the majority of the cakes that you'll see me posting up on my social media, whether it's a kind of a bog standard decorated cake, a carved cake, a sculpted cake. Any of those will usually have some variation of this recipe inside. Now, don't forget, this is just episode 1 of Mr. Baker's Cakes Cake Basics. So do make sure that you come back next week when we will be taking these cakes and torting them, filling them, crumb coating them, and basically getting them to the point that they would be ready to decorate. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up down below, and let me know in the comments if you will be having a go at this recipe. Do make sure you come back next week on Friday when I'll be uploading Mr. Baker's Cake Basics Part 2. And be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to make sure you get a notification as soon as it goes up. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Take care.